Monday through Friday, I process evidence that the officers take in throughout the night that they recover on scenes. They place it into a secured locked evidence room in a locker, and I come in the following morning, pull all that evidence and process it and find a home within our secured locked evidence room. This is going to be like a recovered stolen piece of property that we want to see if we can match up a suspect for. We want to make sure that for all the things that we're doing, we glove up. You never know the potential hazards that may or may not arise within each case. And it's to protect the integrity of our evidence. So we glove up, and each item will have its own individual evidence bag that needs to be filled out accordingly before it's ever entered into property. And so we're going to do a DNA swab. We're going to open up the box, and each swab will have its own labeling in addition to the labels that are on the bag. So we keep our Sharpie handy, and then we have cotton swabs. We use distilled water. I'm going to pull one out. And we simply just put a drop on the top, close it back up, and you can see pretty visibly that there's some fingerprints on here. So again, we can dust for fingerprints. It's going to be at the direction of the detective whether or not they want me to dust for fingerprints or just attempt to lift the DNA. In this instance, we're just going to try to lift for DNA. So we're going to swab a couple different areas. Like I said, I can see obvious fingerprints on here. We try to be as specific as possible because I'm handling it now and I know what I'm doing, but once that gets shipped off to the lab, they don't know anything about what we processed or why. So we try to be as specific as possible from the keyboard of the Dell. When we enter this into property, we're going to be as specific as putting from the Dell with the serial number so that we know it came from that specific laptop, not just any old Dell. This is a recovered stolen vehicle that we found. We're trying to locate a suspect at this point. So in order to do so, we're going to dust for latent fingerprints. Again, latent fingerprints is a fingerprint that you can't see with the naked eye, so we're going to throw some dust down and try to lift the prints and send those off to the lab. We're going to send them off to the lab in hopes that we get a hit, that somebody has committed a crime before and they're already in the system to where we can identify that person and send out a warrant for their arrest in this case. So we have a couple different sizes for latent print cards, depending on the size of print that we find, with the smaller version, and then the larger ones that we use for the big palm prints, or if you see multiple fingerprints on there. I like to use these ones just because it gives you room. On the opposite side, it gives you all the details that you would find on an evidence bag that you'll duplicate here and on the evidence bag. We sketch out the location of where we lifted the print from. And see, just throwing on that little bit of dust, it really brought out these prints right here. And you can see the prints, and you can see that there's some ridging. So the ridging is what they're looking for in the system that they call APHIS at the labs, so that they can try to identify that specific print to a specific person. Again, everybody has their own identifying mark. I feel like what we do really makes a difference. However, it's not like TV. It doesn't take 30 minutes and the crime is solved. It'd be nice if that were the case. But realistically, there's a lot of legwork that goes behind finding the suspects, locating the prints. It's not as clear cut as they make it seem on CSI.
Sorry to interrupt. You need to shut your trunks.
Photos are something that are taken at every scene. We photograph suspects, victims, injuries, the scenes. So before anything is collected on a scene, we're going to photograph the scene as is. That way, if it does go to court, we have our photographic proof to show that X was laying next to Z and Y was somewhere in between, and we'll use rulers and measurements to show exactly where they were in coordination with each other. So when we take photos, we take overall photos. So we're going to step back and show the overall scene and what the surroundings are. And then we're going to get a little bit tighter into a medium frame and try to show, so for example here we've got 3 pieces of evidence. We're going to show all 3 pieces of evidence within the same photo, and then we'll get down into each individual item and show item number 1 and show how it's laying, the measurement of it, and then we'll move on to 2 and 3. For big cases such as homicides, we will actually use a measuring tape and show, okay, item number 1 was 30 inches away from item number 2. And why is that important? It depends on where the gun was dropped, if that was the suspect's, or if they're saying that it's an alleged suicide, then we need to know, does that gun, where it's laying, does that make sense according to the story? So what I'm doing is helping the detectives, in essence. I need to take the photo so that when they come back to review the case at a later date, they can remember what they saw visually by my photographs. It's exhilarating because every day is different. You never know what you're going to encounter. You never know what kind of scene you're walking up to. Everything is brand new. Even if you've done it a million times, every scene is different. You need to treat it accordingly.